kill that. Thank you, Brad Blair. Thank you for coming. The day after this flies on his first orbital flights will be marked in history for all time. There'll be a time before and a time after. Just as with the railroads, there was a time before the railroads and a time after. Or the steamship, the time before the steamship and the time after. The airplane, before and after. Everything will be tied to that moment. And whether it is Elon or Astra or one of the others, whoever does that, who opens that railroad, will have changed history for all time. So this is a good time to start asking some very serious questions. The first one I want to ask is, why are we here? I mean, I know why y'all are here, because it's Austin, right? And thank you for coming. But why are we here? Why do we exist? Why is humanity? Why were we created, or if maybe creation is a little too harsh for you, why did the universe allow certain particles to come together in such combinations and ways that it led to the evolution of a species that has the capability to create Twitter and rocket ships? That's really the question. And that's kind of the thing we're going to be talking about a little bit in different ways for the next couple of days. Why we're here, who we are here, and who and what we may become as we go there. I buried my father Tuesday. He was a great guy. We gave Sarge a great funeral. It was great. He got the gun salute, honor guards, bagpipes, the whole thing. We literally called him Sarge. Those of you who know me know that. And what was interesting is going through, and I'll have to start doing this as soon as this is over and go back, going through the usual rituals that we go through after we have lost somebody. Sitting in his office, in his home, and looking at all the stuff he had, and he had stuff. And thinking for him, everything on those shelves, everything that lined his walls, everything he owned that he could look at, there was a story for him about where that came from, what that was. But it was just stuff. Cut to 6 months from now, or 5 months from now, or 3 months from now, and some lady is going to be shoving this in a bag for 25 cents because it'll look good on her shelf. The meaning of those objects is gone. But he created a legacy. In our case, he created 3 sons. He spread ripples around him. They used to go do, they delivered food to the homeless on Saturdays. And he's a big Kiwanis guy and all this stuff. That's really his legacy. And the stories that we will tell about him. That's his legacy. It's not the stuff. 11 years ago, I lost my mom, little powerhouse English lady, amazing. And it was really interesting because the day we buried her, they had just bought a house out in the country. And I walked out that evening into the pasture in East Texas, beautiful green, verdant place, and it was the middle of the night. Couldn't sleep. And I was just I had a conflict going on inside. Those kind of moments are the moments that rip you open. They make you vulnerable. Losing somebody, breaking up with somebody, tragedy of some sort. It rips you open, your vulnerability, your shell is cracked. And I was open in that moment. And I walked out there, and it's interesting because at that point, for like 30 years, I've been fighting this fight. trying to lead the revolution or help lead the revolution with all the great people who are the rest of the revolutionaries in this field. And I had all of the great points, all the talking points. You're going to hear some of those today. Tim tomorrow morning is going to address the practicality and the pragmatism of what it is we need to do out there. But in that moment, I walked out into that pasture, and it was really dark, little crescent moon, one of those beautiful, reflected on some clouds, some horses over here kind of shuffling around. I could hear the cicadas. And I was just silent. And in that moment, I could feel something. I felt love. I felt the love of my genetic mother, for sure. I knew that. But I felt something bigger. I felt the love of my Earth mother. I could hear her around me. I could breathe her in. I could experience her in that evening, in that night. And as I looked up into the stars, I could see the mother that is our universe. And I was flooded in it. I fell upward into that darkness, which is actually light. And I was able to experience something profound. It touched me. And ever since then, underneath the work I've been doing and continuing to try and do, and companies and this and that, I've been trying to focus in on that and get closer and closer to it. Why are we here? And the voices that I heard that evening were telling me, we love you, and we're waiting for you. Come, join us. And I believe that is why we are here. I believe, without any evidence whatsoever, which makes me basically equal to every religion and philosophy in human history, without any real evidence whatsoever, that we are here as a part of the universe. Now, all of the years I've been in this field talking about those pragmatic things, I've been doing like you have. Like, I got to close my business plan. During my day job, I'm an evil venture capitalist. And it's like, oh, the spreadsheets, and the Excel, it's got to work out. And then you got to go into Washington where there are people who act like they're serious and they know what the hell they're talking about. They're just children in suits. And you're going up there and you're like, you know what? We have a rationale here. We're going to provide jobs in your district and et cetera. You guys know all the arguments. I mean, there's, abundance, space resources, la 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 la, as we try to rationalize to the people out there in the world who maybe don't understand the calling that we have. But those aren't the real reasons. Those are our rationales. That's how we fund the real reasons. That's how we pay for the real reasons. But they are not the real reasons we go. The Earthlight Foundation is a philosophical organization in a sense. And our perspective is that we have a purpose, that we are here for a reason. We haven't figured it out. I mean, basically, we're still freaking apes with guns and cannons and computers and tanks and bombs and keyboards. We don't know why we're here. If you think about it, human consciousness is only just a blink in the history of the Earth. We're still fumbling around. We're still trying to figure it out. We may kill ourselves before we go. We've missed our 1.5 degrees centigrade increase that we were trying to stop. We just missed it. It was just announced this week. Things are going to get really rough. Our generation gets to look at the younger generation and say, hey, sorry we messed up, Clean up on planet 3. It's all yours. And that's what we're giving them. Wouldn't it be great if we could give them a purpose? Wouldn't it be great if we could put them into a place where joy, discovery, love, unity, is the driver of the human species. Wouldn't that be incredible? Normally in my talk, I have a picture of my daughter, who is now 9 years old, and I have a picture of her touching a flower for the very first time in her life. I actually snapped that shot. That moment, that one single moment, changed her life forever. Just as in your life, every time you move into a new place, every time you take a risk, whether it is stepping out into the unknown, stepping out of an airlock, climbing into an airplane, leaning across to take that first kiss of the person you're with and not knowing what's going to happen, anytime you move into that place of uncertainty, that element, that area of chaos, and from there begin to expand who you are, you become a different person. You are literally rewiring the neurons in your brain. You are transforming yourself. You are alive. And you are at purpose. To me, that is why the human species is here. And ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else who's here, that means getting off the freaking couch, putting down the freaking remote, taking off, even though I love the VR stuff out there, taking off the VR and going out and living. And that's why these systems, these machines, are so important. Yes, it's freaking Elon, and it's Jeff, and they make us crazy because those of us who are out there dealing in the media and trying to explain them, it's like, oh, God, you know. They're doing great stuff, you know, but they, you know, it's like, you know, come on. They're easy targets. But they're doing something important. And if, again, they succeed, and we succeed, everything begins to change. I believe that the human species has a purpose, as I said. And that purpose is broken in my mind down into what I call 3 principles. To protect and expand the domain of life, the mother world. I am a tree hugger. I'm in Texas, so I'm a tree hugger with a gun. But I am a tree hugger. I am unapologetic. I believe that this mother world of ours, who has nurtured us so far and so well, deserves so much more than we have given back, and we have to transform our relationship to every other living thing on this planet. Number 2, the second part of that, to carry the seeds of life to places now dead. By the way, real quick, you know, we're dealing with a paradigm shift here. And in a paradigm shift, language shifts to the point where the language you could use or not use before may or may not make sense afterwards. If you were in the 1400s, let's say 1300s, and you're at a party and you're like, you know, you've been to Rome and you've been to all the good schools and all this, and everybody's sitting around drinking wine, and you're explaining to everybody in the party how God's incredible wisdom has allowed the spheres of heaven to be able to move the earth, or move the sun and the other planets around the earth, and that's where celestial music comes from. And everybody's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. The day after Copernicus, you're an idiot. Language changes. Thoughts change. Capabilities of understanding and grasping and defining the universe change as we change. And that's where we are. That's why I can use words like frontier without apologizing for it. That's why I can talk about expansion into space and somebody comes at me and says, oh, you're an imperialist. I'm an eco-imperialist, folks. I am on team life. And team death is out there, and I'm going to carry the seeds of life out there. Your argument doesn't make sense to me. The human species may have spent its entire history up until now in an attack on life, but we're reversing that on the other side of this paradigm. So you can talk to me about it, but you've got to stop and listen for a second, and I have to listen to your concerns. We have to have a conversation, and then you need to understand that what I am talking about is actually what you are talking about, except this time we're trying to get it right. The second principle of purpose is to honor and evolve human civilization. Honor. Honor. We all come from different roots. We have all come via different routes to get where we are. We have to respect each other. I don't care if you're a child of Columbus or a child of Shaka Zulu. I don't care. I honor where you came from. I'm not going to sit here and try to explain all the different mistakes and issues of history. I honor your opinions about them. I have my own about them. There were a lot of big mistakes made, but here we are. I honor you. And now we evolve. And how do we evolve? We evolve because, I'll put it this way, we're all standing on this line, on this border. On that side is this undiscovered country called the future, and our future in the universe. On this side is all of us. Whether it's Elon or Jeff or Dan Faber or Loretta or Lori or all of us, we're here. We're getting ready to go across this line. Behind us is all of human history as we know it, and the things we are learning about it. Now, whether it's telescopes that allow us to see the beginning of the universe, or the Me Too movement, or Black Lives Matter, these are all new lenses through which we can see our past. You know, the people in Rome in the first few centuries of the millennium after the collapse of Rome thought it was built by giants. They had no sense of history. We basically had very little sense of history until just recently. The things we're discovering in archaeology, the things we're discovering in astronomy, the things we're discovering culturally, they may be very uncomfortable for some people, but we're getting wiser. And as we stand on the edge of this frontier, we begin to cross over. How about we learn? Our field is already really good at that. There was one place in the entire universe where Russians and Americans don't just get along, they love each other, and it's right up there. Right up there. What an example. Now, the last one is the fun one. To explore and experience everything in the universe. Explore and experience everything in the universe. It's like my daughter touching that flower, just like these other things I talked about. Us going out. Imagine a society defined by those principles. Imagine a society that exists to go where no human has gone before, to go out into the universe, to learn new things, to celebrate, to define, and if you want to go that far with it, to be able to be the sensing mechanism of the universe whereby the dead matter and rocks and energy that would otherwise exist have a sensory component by which they know of themselves. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be a great society to live in? We got a lot of work to get there, but I believe we can do it. We believe we can do it. And the last part of what I want to say here is we have to make it happen. One of my great, I don't want to call it a disappointment, but I'm a little bit sad lately in that the movement that we struggled so long to create is no longer a movement. We have turned into business people and fans. Fans in that we're waiting for Jeff and Elon to do it for us because, you know, when they get it handled, everything is going to be great. Business people, great, going out making profits, putting together business plans, etc. We aren't fighting anymore. We're fighting for it. By the way, the model I use here is what I call the Zen warrior, right? There's the big picture, and then there's what you have to fight for. And we do have to fight for these things. I'm going to challenge you here with a question. Last week, I think, or something like that, it was announced that the Senate launch scam, the big hunk of whatever it is in Florida sitting on a pad, those companies are about to be awarded a sole source contract that basically goes off and into infinity, which will kill NASA, which will slow everything else down, which will be flying the most polluting spaceships ever built in human history at a time when the generation we're telling to clean up the planet is taking power. And what have you done? Has anybody in this room written a letter, called a congressman, talked to somebody, done an interview to say no? I see one hand, 2, 3, 4, brilliant, 5, thank you. Take action. We have a potential for a beautiful, magnificent, incredible future to give our kids, but we have to take a stand and make it happen. And that's where the New Worlds Institute comes in. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes, but that's going to be, basically, it's going to become a little bit of a, I don't know, we're going to make a little trouble. Think tank. We're going to go after them. We're not going to be quiet. Thou shalt not deorbit the space station. Right? Thou shalt respect life on other worlds, but we shall not hesitate from going to other worlds. Thou shalt enable rights of salvage to help clean up the debris problems. We might even upset some of our friends by saying, guys, is it really a good idea to be deorbiting 100,000 satellites in the upper atmosphere and having them burn up and put whatever that is into the atmosphere? We're going to be objective about it overall, but we're going to take on the fight because this is worth it. In fact, I can't think of anything else as worth it, as much worth it as what we're talking about and what we'll be talking about for the next 2 days. So I am so glad you're here. We are honored. Our team of, these are mainly volunteers. Almost everybody in here is a volunteer. Except that one guy. No, I'm kidding. But we are all volunteers. We're here to help you expand your minds, and you're here to help us expand ours. We hope you have a great time. And